For over a century, we've built modern life on cheap, reliable energy and postponed dealing with the consequences. The problem with a devil's bargain like this is it eventually comes due, not necessarily all at once, but through costs that compound over time, borne by future generations that never really agreed to the deal in the first place. It's understandable how we got here. Once humans learned to harness access to concentrated energy, largely fossil fuels, societal progress accelerated dramatically. And those that could scale access to energy, they unlocked longer lives, and stronger institutions, and greater opportunity. And those that could not remain in the dark. Take urban sanitation that reduced infectious diseases, or mechanized agriculture that increased food production, or industrial manufacturing that lowered costs, all made possible through access to abundant energy. But now there's a catch. That very system that powered this extraordinary expansion is now driving climate change. But first, let's look at that link between fossil fuels and climate change. Coincidence or consequence? Well, thermometers that have been collecting data for over a century report that the Earth's average temperature has increased 1.2 degrees Celsius since before the Industrial Revolution. And that's a figure confirmed by multiple institutions. And what's striking is not so much the amount of increase, but the speed of it. Scientists have shown us that this rapid rise in temperature cannot be explained by natural factors alone. It tracks directly with the increase in greenhouse gas emissions due to human activity. And because of this rise in temperature, well, more heat is being trapped in our atmosphere. Glaciers are melting, coral reefs are dying, and heat extremes are becoming more frequent. And because warmer air traps more moisture, rainfall and storms are becoming more intense, leading to greater economic and human consequences. And yet, the International Energy Agency reports that still 80% of our global energy sources come from fossil fuels. But that dominance is slowly eroding as clean energy is increasingly powering our future. We're seeing growth in nuclear and geothermal and hydropower. And today, across most parts of the world, the best energy choices are actually solar and wind, strengthened by energy storage, driven by electrification and energy efficiency, and a smarter, more flexible grid. Now, the concept of clean energy sometimes triggers skepticism. Is it reliable, affordable? Is it scalable? For some, clean energy also is considered a threat to our economic security and growth. And yes, for a long time, clean energy felt like an ideological choice. But actually, clean energy is reshaping our global energy landscape. The story that no one is telling you is that while electricity demand is increasing due to economic development and electrification, data centers, and artificial intelligence, today, more than 90% of new energy generation globally is renewables. Yes, the world is on track to add 4,600 gigawatts of clean energy to the grid by the end of the decade. That's like building 2 or 3 power plants every single day for the next 4 years. And battery storage is scaling just as quickly, so we'll be able to deliver electricity where it's needed, when it's needed, even when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. The clean energy revolution in China is unprecedented. The National Energy Administration of China reports that in May 2025 alone, they added more solar capacity to their grid than most countries do in a year. And here in the US, well, California's grid-scale energy storage has grown more than 2,000% since 2019. And my own home in cold New Hampshire, it's fully electric. It's solar with backup batteries. It's reliable heat pumps. It's efficient induction cooking. Comfort without combustion. And all of this progress, it's real and it matters, but it's not enough. What keeps me up at night is not necessarily whether clean energy will eventually win, it's whether or not we'll phase out fossil fuels fast enough to avoid the most damaging consequences of climate change. I see this risk most clearly in the role I have now as Dean of the Columbia Climate School, the first climate school in the nation. My job is to help prepare the next generation of engineers and entrepreneurs and public leaders and policymakers. And they will be managing grids under stress and food systems under pressure and cities facing extreme heat and flooding and displacement. This will be the world they inherit. That devil's bargain finally come due. And so this brings us to the real issue. If we have all the solutions, what's stopping us from adopting them more quickly? Well, it's friction. It's the invisible resistance in the system, the resistance to change, the skepticism, the extra paperwork that's quietly pushing us to the old solutions, even though better ones exist. When I was consulting on the renovation of a public high school, we were aiming for energy-efficient technologies and a hybrid geothermal system that would cut energy costs for decades. And with clear benefits and strong community support, what slowed us down were repeated questions about promised energy savings and honest concerns about whether the staff would have the right training to keep these new systems running. And that points us to the friction in human decision-making. We tend to benefit priorities in the present over the benefits that we might have in the long run. It's when new solutions fit into existing routines that often adoption accelerates. Take the LED light bulb. One of the reasons the LED is now the default without too much resistance is because manufacturers made them to look and function almost exactly like the incandescent bulbs they were replacing. We now need to make clean energy the irresistibly easy choice by reducing friction in the system. As energy consumers, you can play your part at inflection points when systems are replaced. When your car dies and you opt for an electric vehicle. When your water heater breaks and you ask for the energy-efficient heat pump model, even if that's not what the plumber has on his truck. Even if we replace 10% of global water heaters with the energy-efficient, cost-saving heat pump model, well, we would save enough energy to power 1 million US homes every year. And artificial intelligence will also strip friction from the system by optimizing grids and buildings and transportation systems and industrial processes so less energy is wasted. Reducing friction will also take governments deciding that clean infrastructure matters. Now, making progress on policies can seem daunting, but in aggregate, those local policies, they will determine whether or not the clean energy transition happens in 3 years or 10, and whether or not we'll be able to phase out fossil fuels fast enough. Because in this country, the most important energy decisions, they don't happen in Washington. They happen locally in the city and states where each of you lives. As citizens, your civic engagement matters when policies are written, when hearings are held, when investment decisions are made. Showing up for those moments and supporting leaders who prioritize clean energy, well, that's among the most important things that you can do. Take New York. In the city, buildings account for a majority of emissions. But after years of discussion with building owners and labor unions and climate organizations, the city has now adopted building performance standards that focus on efficiency and electrification. Building owners now have access to green financing and some flexibility in how they comply. The path to least resistance, well, it points to cleaner buildings. And so what we've walked through together is this. The very system that once powered our prosperity is now putting it at risk. Changing how we produce energy is no longer optional if we want to preserve stability and enable future economic growth globally. The clean energy transition is no longer waiting on belief or sacrifice or some future breakthrough. The better, more affordable, more reliable system is already here. Now, we just have to make it irresistibly easy. And that's a responsibility that we all share. So, this really isn't a story about energy. It's a story about the future we choose. Thank you.